teaching you guys about Hoover Mills. During the Great Depression, people across America became unemployed. As people were evicted from their homes, they had to find somewhere to live. Right here's an example of people getting evicted from their homes. The towns were called Hoover Mills because the president's policies did not help end the Depression, and the unemployment continued to rise. The largest Hoover Mill was in St. Louis and held about 8,000 people.
If the audience has any questions too while he's presenting, it's okay for you guys to raise your hand.
And here's some large Hoover Mills.
Make sure you're looking at your audience because you have people that...
Jack?
Do you know what the size was of the biggest one?
We're not exactly sure about the size, but we know that it held up to 8,000 people. Hoovervilles were sometimes huge to small towns depending on where you were in America. The average diet of a person in Hooverville was dried beans, potatoes, and powdered milk. And here's a picture of people eating food during the Depression. Hooverville became a common term for shanty towns and homeless camps. The Great Depression made a lot of people lose everything all around America, so they had to make Hoovervilles out of bricks, wood, cardboard, and whatever else they could find. And here are some houses like made out of metal, here's some wood and stuff. And people who lost everything in the Great Depression tried to live near cities so they could find soup kitchens. Also, the Hoovervilles were very dirty because they did not have running water or sanitation, so a lot of Hoovervilles lived near water. Some of them grew vegetable gardens so they could have some extra food. And here's an example of some soup kitchens and people farming vegetable gardens. And after 1940, the combination of the New Deal and World War II helped the economy recover. Unemployment fell, and the shanty housing eradication, or to put an end to programs, destroyed all of the Hoover Mills. Does anybody else have any questions?
I'd like people to give them maybe 2 or 3. Hopefully you guys are listening.
Jack?
Take it away.
Who the stock market crash affected? People in Canada and the U.S. When share prices in New York State collapsed, stocks lost 80% of their value. What the stock market crash did. The stock market crash wiping out billions of dollars. The crash was preceded by a period of phenomenal growth. The crash was preceded by a period of phenomenal growth and speculative expansion. This is a picture of, instead of Black Friday, like Black Tuesday. When the stock market crash happened. The stock market crash happened October 29th, 1929. This is a picture of a newspaper that was set down. Where did the stock market crash happen? The stock market crash happened the stock market happened in southern United States on November 1930th. The collapse began a string of banks to collapse in Tennessee and Kentucky. This is a picture. Stocks falling. This is why the stock market crash happened. There were overvalued stocks, low margin requirements, interest rate hikes, poor banking structures, and bank runs. This is a picture of what a bank run would have kind of looked like. This is how the stock market crash happened. On September 20th, 1929, the London Stock Exchange crashed. London crash greatly weakened the optimism of American investment. The markets were severely unstable. Questions?
First, give him a round of applause. Action.
Today we're going to be teaching you about the Dust Bowl and the drought. What caused the Dust Bowl? The Dust Bowl was caused by several economics and agricultural factors, including federal land policies and changing in enrichment, weather, farm economy, and other cultural factors after the Civil War. A series of federal land acts Westmore pioneers farming in the Great Plains. The Homestead Act of 1862, which provided settlers with 160 acres of public land, was followed by the Kincaid Act of 1904 and the enlarged Homestead Act of 1909. These acts led to massive influx of new and experienced farmers across the Great Plains. So it was a combination of poor farming. What happened during the Dust Bowl? The Dust Bowl was named due to the drought-stricken plantations of the United States, which suffered severe dust storms and a drought in 1930s. As high winds and choking dust swept the region from Texas to Nebraska, people and livestock killed and crops failed across the entire region.
I noticed you guys, can you go back? One of the things you haven't really done is tell us about the pictures. I mean, what are we looking at when we see these images? Can you go back? You skipped over your images. I'm wondering if would you like to say something about your images or? Okay. I would talk about your pictures in future slides if you have images up there. They're really helpful to us to understand what you guys are trying to say. Go ahead, you guys can continue.
Where did the people go during the drought and dust storms left an estimate of 5,000 people homeless and an estimate of 2.5 million people lived out in the Dust Bowl states. These people moved to Arizona, Washington, or Oregon. Approximately 27 people moved to Canada. And that is a picture of that is a photo of where some people went during the Dust Bowl. What states were affected by the Dust Bowl? The Dust Bowl made for both the drought period of the Great Plains of the United States, for example, southeastern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, the Panhandles of Texas, and Oklahoma, northeastern New Mexico. And this is some charts about how severe.
Those are maps. Please take a second and talk about that map on the right, because that's a really good image to really help us understand. Can you talk about that picture?
So, this is a chart of how dry the drought was. So the red is where it was mostly dry, the driest, and as the colors went down, that's where it was less dry. Like what?
You keep calling it a chart. What is that though? It's not a chart.
It's a map.
It's a map of what?
It's a map.
Of the United States, first of all. So we have a map of the entire United States. So what I'm seeing in that map is I'm seeing a drought that not just affected a small area of the country, but this drought affected almost the entire United States. A large portion of it being right in the middle where most of our crops are grown. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Can the Dust Bowl happen again? Such conditions could be expected to occur naturally, rarely, but once in a century, but with rising of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Those conditions are likely to be much more frequent events. Dust Bowl is a distant memory, but the odds of such a drought happening again are here. Benjamin Cook of the NSA Goddard claims that climate change is likely to lead to less rainfalls regionally and higher temperatures nationwide. 1934, an estimated 35 million acres of formerly cultivated land had been rendered useless for farming, while another 125 million acres, an area roughly 3/4 the size of Texas, was rapidly losing its topsoil. Regular rainfall returned to the region by the end of 1950, bringing the Dust Bowl years to close. The Management saves the nation from one of the worst environmental disasters. Hunt Benton was critical and rescued the United States from Dust Bowl, yet almost no one has ever heard of them. The local newsletter is your free daily guide in Life, Colorado. And that's a picture of the state. How long did the Dust Bowl last? The entire region, already a semi-arid climate, endured extreme drought for almost a decade. Over the 11-year span from 1930 to 1940, a large part of the region saw 50 to 25% less precipitation than normal. This is very significant to see such a large deficit over such a long period of time. In my opinion, the Dust Bowl was a fallacy. I wish we could go back in time and make the whole thing react. It was a time that caused us. It was a depressing time. Caused many people pain, caused many people sad. In my opinion, it should have never happened. My opinion of the Dust Bowl is that it should have never happened. It was a nasty storm that people did not like. It was higher than high winds. It made 700,000 people homeless, and people had to find shelter every time it happened. We both agree that the Dust Bowl was a very no one deserved to deal with it. The Dust Bowl was a long-lasting storm which caused many people pain and many people death. We agree that it was a very depressing time in history and no one deserved it.
Action.
Our song is about the entertainment and music about the Great Depression. Entertainment back then was certain types of board games, card games, cinema, radio shows, you name it. But back then, since the Great Depression and the stock market crash, you can't really afford it. So all the prices for everything were just a couple of bucks back then. So we're going to explain to you about how music and entertainment were back then.
All right, so you're going to do this through your song?
Yes.
All right, so you guys are ready to sing your song?
Yes. I thought we needed music.
Okay, you guys are ready to sing?
Yes.
Sing away.
Okay, let's go first.
Okay, here we go. First, back in the 1930s and the 1940s, we had old bands of jazz and swing. One of the band's names was Woody Herman. And also, then you had other music writers. But also, mainly, they had radio shows, podcasts, and other songwriters. With all that, they also have the music. They had old bands that played, sing, just like in Bud Not Buddy, like Harmony Calloway and the band. Also, they had Woody Herman. Caso Lomo was another old band that was playing in the 1930s to the 1940s.
Another part of entertainment was the board games. One was a family classic called Monopoly. The point of the game, you're going to be the last one standing by collecting property and rent. The next one I'm going to talk about is Scrabble. It's a word that's really fun. You gotta create words, write them down to the person who knows words before the timer runs out wins. Another part is other forms of entertainment are card games. Like you can play solitaire, crazy eights with all your friends, play poker with cigars, and then many more. Like that's the part. Let's go to the bullshit.
Up a little, up to the cinema. There was no video games or any CGI. More like live action. 25 cents to escape the troubles of space. Face friends go night.
like change the sun instead of the Twitch and make movies bucket and what. The popcorn was never there or any food that was at the movies they forget the problems for a couple of hours. A modern web services. Distracting Americans. Only 60 to 80 who went to the movies. The movie industry considers itself a rush. But that didn't last so long. Even Hollywood is damaged. In the face of doubt and despair, films have saying sustain the passion of the world. The kind of first into rush, the second half of impression into beginning, by the burns, base stories, comedies and musicals. And that's the end of us. Does anyone have any questions?
Action.
My question is about discrimination. Put it at that.
Sorry, girls. Use the mouse and just click the next button. You're right clicking. Use the left click button. Stop right clicking. Can you go back one time? Was there race or was there discrimination based off of sexual orientation back in the Great Depression?
Discrimination is unfair treatment of people based on religious characteristics. How is it that people sex?
The term discrimination appeared in the Alice in how it affects ranging from low self-esteem to higher from developing sexual related disorders such as anxiety and depression.
Sex discrimination is mental discrimination about people's sex. Race discrimination.
Discrimination while you're at school, at work, or in public places such as a mall, workplace, and living
A lot of people lose jobs and not be able to skip jobs to switch jobs. Most of them start divine starvation.
Action.
Alright, our skit is about hobos and how hobos would get around in their transportation and all that.
And why they left and what
Yeah.
they're doing,
And
stuff like that.
and then we have some of when it all took place.
Okay. All right, you guys gonna jump right into it?
Well, let's see if that's train to get out of town. Yeah, what do you say? What about you? Well, what do you think? Oh. So when did you guys start walking? We started walking on my great grandma's birthday. And when was it? It was in October of 1929, worst day of my life. Only because after that much passion to really tell, we were in a present with all the people jumping to get food and then trucking like that. How'd you guys meet? Well, the words were with a fit of different mother and bud. We never got your name. Well, I'm Bill. This is Bill. What's your guys' name? I'm Bill.
You wanna turn it down?
Uh-oh, train's leaving. Gotta go. Come on, come on, come on. I wonder how long it's going to take us to get west. Probably a few hours. Well, we should just
Action.
Our skit that we're going to present to you is about orphans. What you're going to see is mostly what it would be like to be an orphan living on the streets. Leah, this is the 10th time I'm talking to you. Lies, lies, lies. You know you're not supposed to with the other kids. Every time we don't hurt the kids, it's your twin. Oh yeah, she ran away. Yeah, right.
You do not scare me. You're not even scary. I hate you, you useless rat.
One, I am not a rat. Two, you do not speak to adults like that.
Yeah, right. I guess you do not know there is something called freedom of speech.
Leah, you have gone too far. You're sleeping on the floor tonight.
I was watching my other sleep. What should I do? I don't want to care if I leave. What can I do?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find help for my friend Amanda. Since you're here, do you know how to help Amanda?
I follow the situation.
Can you work with bad meetings?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go. Well, I was getting beaten up by a spoiled rat when a Ruka stepped in and tried to stop her. She ended up getting beaten instead.
It's horrible.
Mostly bruises, but some deep cuts. Yeah, can you help her Ruka?
I'll try my best.
Okay. Well, thanks for helping Aurora. By the way, you kind of look familiar.
I do not know, but by the way, what's your name?
I know, listen, this is Aurora.
I am Mia.
If you don't mind me asking, what's your last name? Sister, is that you? Oh, sorry.
Hey, how about we go find an open and knock down the streets?
I'm not so sure. I think we should go to sleep.
Yeah, it got dark really fast.
Yes. 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 Yeah, I'm only ready for this.
I'm really pushing on this one.
That was really good. Who here wants to play a game? End story.
Action.
What happened is the reveal and reveal. By 1942, when Enterprise Bank had closed without giving people their money back, businesses were closing and people were losing their jobs. That job was money people were losing their houses and going without money. It was the Great Depression and unemployment was up to 23.6%. On July 2nd, 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt gave his New Deal speech. He had a plan to fix the economy. He called the plan the New Deal. He was going to get Americans back free. The first 100 days of Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency started on March 4th, 1932. President Franklin D. Roosevelt started his fireside chats to help gain support for the New Deal and reassure Americans. He spoke to the nation over the radio, and he was having a meaningful conversation with his friends. His wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, was his eyes and ears. She would go out on tours and come back to report the conditions of things and what people thought about everything that was going on.
The New Deal promised to provide relief, recovery, and reform. Relief by getting people back to work, helping them keep their houses, and put food on their tables. Recovery by fixing the economy and ending the Great Depression. Reform to prevent another depression. The New Deal created many programs, so many of these programs had acronyms that people started calling them alphabet soup. The AAA, Agricultural Adjustment Act, gave farmers less crops. The PWA, Public Works Administration, helped improve American infrastructure by building roads, public buildings, bridges, dams, subways, and even sewage plants. The CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, for young men to work in national forest. The TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, built dams and electric power plants on the Tennessee River to provide electricity to unsafe and rainfall flooding. The WPA, Works Progress Administration, created many kinds of jobs, including building roads, schools, airports, paying off for public building, and even setting up community theaters.
The New Deal got more people back to work. It made them feel more secure and helped rebuild the infrastructure. It even restored people's confidence in banking with the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that would pay people when a bank closed or lost money. But it wasn't all good. Taxes went up and people were depending on the government. Women and African Americans barely benefited from the New Deal. The temporary jobs would end and business couldn't afford to hire employees, even though many of New Deal programs ended. 7 of them are still around today. This is an example of the alphabet soup program, and this was actually a pen that I gave you out so that more people vote for something to work. That is an article about, and this is a timeline of the Great Depression. The
Great Depression begins in 1929 and banks begin to fail in 1920. Then the Depression worsens in 1931. Unemployment rises to 23% and over 10,000 banks have failed in 1932. 1933, nothing really important happened. 1934, more laws are passed. 1935, the Second New Deal begins. 1936, unemployment fails to 16.9. In 1937, FDR is elected as president again. In 1938, unemployment rises to 19%. In 1999, World War II brings the end of the Depression. And then here, and all the alphabet soup. And 95th just pronunciation, including memory, recovery, and exam. And the word infrastructure is actually just means like bridges, roads, anything going to go out.
Give them a round of applause. That's a good start. Action.
Today I am going to teach you guys about the bank runs in the Great Depression. Cameron Maxwell, Carter Scott, and Joshua Fletcher.
What is the Great Depression? The Great Depression is an economic downturn in the history of the industrialized good lasting from 1929 to 1939.
In the bank runs, it was very crowded. There's a picture of
After the crash during the 10 months of 1949, 744 banks failed, 100 was negative. 9,000 banks failed. And the banking authorities estimated that 4,000 banks failed during the year.
It's a good thing we got that FDIC program now, huh?
Here are some more facts. By 1933, depositors saw $140 billion disappear through the bank failures. Another fact is, during the Great Depression, the banks lent large portions of their assets for stock market speculation. The thing that caused the bank runs was a large number of depositors, fearing that their bank will be unable to repay their deposits in full and on time.
Simultaneously.
Yeah. And tried to withdraw their funds immediately.
What is a bankrupt? A bankrupt is unable to pay outstanding debts.
Any questions?
Yes, I would definitely not want to live my life in the Great Depression.
I would like to thank you for the time and attention you have given me for my presentation. Thanks a lot.
Give them a round of applause.
Today, we'll be teaching you about orphans and orphanages during the Great Depression. The effects for orphans that lived during the Great Depression in the 1920s and 1930s were hard labor, malnutrition, and hunger. Lots of orphans suffered from emotional neglect once they entered their house. Orphanages take care of orphans until their house and taken care of. Some resorted to unraveling and trashing from the others spent years in prison for committing crimes. Few families could afford to see doctors or other medical professionals, which meant they more or less cared for themselves.
That stinks.
Some children who were exhausted from their daily routines of continuous work ran away and caught slaves and multiplies and many died in the The children in this picture are outside and are wearing the apparel that children wore during the Depression. The children in this picture are being sold because the wealthy parents can't keep up. The children in this picture are working an old-fashioned sewing machine during the Great Depression. The children in this picture are sad and dirty after the long day of working at the workhouse.
Action.
We're going to teach you guys about music and entertainment in the Great Depression. Where did entertainment become popular in the Great Depression? Radio programs, music, dance,
dancing and dancing marathons, and cinema/theaters helped make entertainment popular in the Great Depression.
What's a dancing marathon?
I'm pretty sure it's like kind of Broadway, just like there wasn't as much like expensiveness. It was more of them just all dancing.
Okay.
This picture shows them dancing, and
That really shows them going to the theater.
What radio shows were popular in the Great Depression? The Lone Ranger, the Green Hornet, and Jack Armstrong were some of the most popular radio shows in the Great Depression.
what did people listen to, and what instruments did people play in the Great Depression? People in the Great Depression listened to swing and jazz music. The bands and people are Count Basie,
Count Basie.
Duke Ellington, Eddie Goodman, and Tommy Dorsey. Judy. Some of the instruments that were used in the Great Depression are fiddles, guitars, string instruments, and banjos. That picture shows a band with some of those instruments.
Who made music popular in the Great Depression? Duke Ellington, Eddie Goodman, and Glenn Miller made music popular in the Great Depression. Duke Ellington played piano, Eddie Goodman played clarinet, and Glenn Miller played trombone. These people played in jazz bands.
Music and the Great Depression will let you guys listen to.
Play us a few seconds.
Yeah.
Duke Ellington was probably one of the most well-known, so I think you picked a good sample here. He stayed famous for a long time. There are people, piano enthusiasts, still listen to this guy. He kind of like made the piano cool.
And we have one more right here.
This one's Glenn Miller.
I think so.
Spectrum Mobile is the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation. And now is the time to switch.
He was another really popular one. Got all the guys dancing back here. That's good. Thank you for that.
When did the music period start? When did the music period start in the Great Depression? During the 1930s, the country enjoyed the emergence of a range of distinct.
Why do they listen to music and play games to keep people entertained? People listen to music and play games including background games, puzzles, and card games, and Monopoly.
They did this so they can get their minds off of the situation they're in, having little food without having jobs.
They play Monopoly. So if they lost like property or like they didn't have enough money, they play the Monopoly so they can like feel like they have like property and money and stuff like that. How did Great Depression affect music? After the stock market crashed in 1929, people went into a state of depression. Suicide rates rose, People starved and men left their lives. Citizens tried to find a way to look for hope and to relive their depression so they turned to music to express their feelings. That's it.
Give him a round of applause. Action.
Today we will be teaching you about unemployment and the Great Depression.
Will you two guys move in? Just move in, both of you. Keep going. That's good.
By Carter Thomas, Jackson Center,
Who is it to blame for unemployment and Great Depression? The people who had money in the Great Depression went to invest in the stock market. This caused people to lose most of their money when they invested. This hurt many businesses and began to fall, which led to workers being unemployed. When the people had no jobs, they had no homes, so they had to live in hotels, and they also became homeless. Since they had no jobs, money, or vehicles, they jumped trains to get places they needed.
When did the unemployment start in the Great Depression? Unemployment in the Great Depression started in 1929 when the stock market crashed and nobody could pay their workers, so they unemployed them.
Why was unemployment so high in the Great Depression? Unemployment was so high because stock market crashed sent streets into a wildfire, and many people began to stop investing in the stock market. Throughout several years, this made it where many people spend less and made it hard for business to pay and keep workers. In the 1930s, the unemployment rate hit the highest of 24%.
Wait, go back. Go back. Talk about that chart, man. I wish that thing was bigger. Explain it. What is that chart? That's a really good bar graph.
So, in 1929, almost 5% of people were getting unemployed. And then by 1933, it hit higher than 25%.
Yeah, looking at that graph, I can tell how quickly unemployment took hold in this country. We went from like 3% in 1929 to by 1933, we were up to almost 25%. That's a giant leap. And it stayed high. It looks like, if I'm looking at that graph correctly, it stayed high all the way through 1939. It's a good image that you guys picked out. I wish you guys would have spent more time talking about it.
How did unemployment affect people living in the Great Depression? Stocks continued to fail during the 1930s. Businesses failed badly and unemployment rose dramatically. By 1932, one of every few workers was unemployed by others. Banks failed and life savings were closed, leaving many Americans stuck in a state of depression with no jobs and no savings. Thousands of Americans lost their homes. And then we have pictures of people protesting about not having any jobs.
Give him a round of applause. Action.
So we're going to teach you about the stock market crash of 1929. How it crashed. On Black Monday of October 28, 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped by 13%. Why did it happen? Because people started not to trust the banks and started to rush to the banks to take out their money. When you give banks money, they use your money to pay others, so people took out their money, and when the Dow Jones dropped to get all of their money back.
Causing of the stock market crash 1920. There were low wages, the account of the debtor, a struggling sector, and the access of large banks loans that couldn't be paid. The prices of stocks soared to fantastic heights, and great unbelievable. The public from banking and registration and could rush to to invest their finances or their savings in securities which they could sell at a profit.
Results. The crash lasted about 10 years. The businesses shut down and closed due to the crash. By 1932, 1 out of 4 Americans were unemployed. Jobs when the market crashed. Jobs when the market crashed were hard to get, safe enough to get food. If you worked on a farm, your income would drop nearly 50% due to banks not being able to pay businesses, and would get half your income you got before the market crashed. People would lose their jobs and not get paid and have to live in Hoovervilles. Over 12,830,000 were unemployed.
So my topic is the Dust Bowl from 1929 to 1940. And the Dust Bowl was a period of severe dust storms from 1929 to 1940. And it started from poor and aggressive farming techniques and high winds, and America was in drought conditions. And the people that the Dust Bowl affected from this picture was mainly Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, and Oklahoma. What the people did to adapt in these two pictures are people had abandoned houses and ran away from areas of dust storms to look for new lives, and many became homeless and starved to death. And the Dust Bowl ended after about a decade, and rain had finally fallen.
So our project is about the stock market crash. This is during the Great Depression. So basically we're going to be explaining like how it started, what happened like in between of it, how it ended, and some other stuff in between.
Okay, go right to it.
This is obviously made by me and Isabella. So, how the stock market crash all happened was, it started in 1929, and it was an economic event in the U.S., so the United States. That precipitated the Great Depression. The U.S. stock market crash expanded rapidly in the late 1920s and reached a peak in August 1929, when prices began to decline while speculation increased. On October 18th, the stock market began to fall precipitatively. No, I'm just gonna put this down. On the first day of real panic, October 24th, known as Black Thursday, a record of 12,894,650 shares were traded. Banks and investment companies bought large blocks of stock to stem the panic. But on October 29th, Black Tuesday, 16 million shares were traded and prices collapsed. This is what happened in between. So like all the small details before it ended. The stock market crash of 1929 had a devastating effect on the culture of the 1930s as investors, businesses, and farms lost money. They started to shutter and lay off workers. Banks closed as well. The Great Depression began in the 1930s, leading to soup kitchens, bread lines, and homelessness across the nation. The culture in the 30s shifted dramatically from that in the 20s. The 20s, known as the Roaring 20s, saw a period of economic growth and consumption after the war, while 1930s witnessed poverty and economic decline. This is how it ended. The Great Depression hit almost everybody in Western societies, and governments had no choice but to intervene. One notable thing that happened in the United States, as President Roosevelt launched the New Deal, which complied a number of measures to stimulate the economy. And 25 years later, in 1954 to be exact, the Dow Jones Industrial Average managed to recoup its losses. So we kind of got a little lost down here, but we tried. So this is how it affected the people. So the Great Depression hit almost everybody in Western societies. Governments had no choice but to interfere. Investors, businesses, and farmers lost money. They started while speculation increased. On October 18th, the stock market began to fall precipitously. I still can't say that. Yes. On the first day of real panic.
What that tells me is that's probably not your own word. That's not a word that's yours.
I know what it means, I just can't say it. I forgot to practice.
My point is, it sounds like a lot of copying and pasting from the internet. It doesn't sound like some of these are your own words. Keep going, please.
On the first day of real panic, October 24th, known as Black Thursday, a record of 12,900,000 and 650 shares were traded. Banks and investment companies bought large blocks of stock to stem the pain. On October 29th, Black Tuesday, 16 million shares were traded and prices collapsed. The stock market crash of 1929, also called the Great Depression of the 1930s, the Great Depression lasted approximately 10 years and affected both industrial and non-industrial countries in many parts of the world. So this is my opinion on it. The stock market crash was deadly for many people, and that is just terrible the way millions of families lost each other. I mean, if I lost my mom, I would be devastated. Honestly, I just can't believe that losing that much money could affect the world so much. That's just heartbreaking. For the people in the crash who were affected by this crash.
We learned a lot of people lost their families. The president's name during the crash was Hoover. A lot of people lost a lot of money. The crash started in 1929. Most people lost their jobs. Most people also lost their homes, but not body lived during the crash.
Taking something from the book. So this is our conversation we had about it. We wanted to add us in this as well. So, what do you think of the stock market crash?
I think it was sad.
Why do you think it was sad?
I know it's sad because a lot of people died. It was sad because a lot of people lost their families.
That is a pretty good reason. Why did we choose this topic? Well, we chose this topic because there's a lot to write for. So therefore, we wouldn't be stuck on this topic.
We chose this topic because we wanted to know so much more about the stock market crash to see what it was like back in the Great Depression. We think it was very stressful and sad.
A little bit weird.
Can we give you a round of applause? Give him a round of applause. Action.
The New Deal.
The New Deal. The New Deal is
did the New Deal started? The New Deal was created to help the people. Many people got new jobs or received money from the government to help pay for food and housing.
And don't forget to talk about your pictures and images if you have any.
Oh, this is a picture I found in Google about the how and its on doing a job in the New Deal.
Why was the New Deal created? The New Deal was created because of the Great Depression. The Great Depression was when people lost their money from the banks. Because America
And this is a wolf pink America. That was what like it was like for why like for the picture for why.
When did the New Deal start? The New Deal started in 1933 to 1934. When Franklin D. Roosevelt was president of the United States of America. New Deal for a new generation.
Well, the New Deal was in the United States in New York. And this is a quote. I forgot what these things are called, but it's something to symbolize where you are at. There's a sign. What happened?
You just hit something, it's not a big deal. Just click anywhere off of it, bud.
What? The New Deal was a series of programs, public work projects, finalized reforms, and railroad engagement impacted by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And this is a picture of the New Deal program. And any questions?
Give them a round of applause first. Action.
We are going to teach you about what happened in the Great Depression of discrimination. And this is presented by Aubrey Garner, Abigail Scott, Rachel Lynn Shane, and Jocelyn Hagel. Discrimination is an unjust, prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, as in gender, or disability. Victims of racial discrimination. In other words, it is how a person or people takes out a certain race, sex, age, etc., and a person inflicts them and gives he or she special events such as jobs, money, activities, rights, etc. This can cause suicide, homeless people, etc.
Don't want to look at the backs of you.
The Poachers were the first Western slavers in Africa and with grateful support captured in Africa. Part of in 1415, slave trading of Native Africans was relatively small scale during the 15th century as the butcheries and Spanish were enslaving the native population in Central and Southern America at the age of 16. Enslaved boys and girls were considered full-fledged workers, tasked as former laborers and forced into trades. Mr. Trimble?
Go back to that slide. All right, I'm going to ask a question here. What does the slave trade in 1400s have to do with discrimination in the Great Depression?
Well, the mostly African American people were traded because of their race and what they did for them.
Okay, so there's a connection somewhere?
Yes.
Okay, just not seeing it right now.
What happened in 1619? In 1619, the white people started to exclude African Americans from jobs, rights, peace, and to be free. They made African Americans cook, clean for the rich. They even traded African Americans for money. The children had little food. Very African Americans kids, women, and men are seen in 1619, where probably slaves are running on the street with no home.
On a cold winter day, thousands gathered in front of the White House to demonstrate against racial injustice and out of control employment, holding signs saying, "We demand work or wages," and fight police black and white workers until police broke up the crowd with billy clubs and tear gases.
In 1929, Chicago author Joseph Bibb organized boycott of the city department stores that refused to hire African Americans. The grassroots protests against racially discrimination hired practice workers, resulting in the employment of 2,000 African Americans.
Why did we make this document? We created this document because we think all races should be equal and not just because of the way they look. Thank you for listening.
Any questions? Feel free to ask.
Action!
I am teaching you about Hoover. Who was Herbert Hoover? Hoover was the 31st president of the White House from 1929 to 1936.
Just whichever one you like.
Where was Herbert Hoover born? Herbert Hoover was born in West Branch, Iowa on August 10th, 1873. This is West Branch, Iowa looks like on the map. Why is he well known? Herbert Hoover achieved international success as a mining engineer
in worldwide gratitude as the great humanitarian who fed war-torn Europe during and after World War I. And this picture is a picture of Europe. When was he president? Herbert Hoover was president from 1929 to 1932. Herbert Hoover, the Great Depression. The Great Depression started after the stock market crash in October 1929. Herbert Hoover was just starting his first year in the White House. Any questions?
Let's give her a round of applause. Action.
So, over the Great Depression, we're going to teach you about the Great Depression.
Need help?
Click with your index finger.
If it doesn't work, just click the screen.
Guys, don't laugh. It's just a mouse. He's having a little trouble with the mouse. It's not a big deal. You wouldn't want to be laughed at. Loud.
Who was the first hobo? The first hobo was Leon Ray, and he was a famous hobo and was an author called a No One. Leon Ray became a hobo from thinking riding trains and walking was better than sitting around.
What happened to hobos in the Great Depression? At least 6,500 hobos were killed in 1 year, either in accidents or
Don't stand in front of it with your back to us. No, just stand back where you were. Stand back where you were. That was great. Bryce, you can click the slides, dude.
often they blow the trains jumping on and off from the pole or cattle cars, wherever life might be better.
Loud and out here towards us.
A lot of people became hobos. Some wanted to escape poverty and troubled families, others because it seemed a great adventure. What is a hobo? During the Great Depression, millions of unemployed men became hobos, homeless migrants who wandered in search of work.
Hobos hopped the railroads in search of work for families and right.
Any questions?
Give him a round of applause.
Hi, my name is Trent, and I'm doing Orphan as my project. An orphan is a child whose parents have died. Now, in the story Bud Not Buddy, he is an orphan. Synonyms: paternal orphans, maternal orphans. Antonyms are child, siblings, family, children. Here's the picture.
What's your picture of?
I just like this picture, and
What is it of?
an orphan, and I think him just,
It's a picture of an orphan.
yeah.
Give him a round of applause. Action.
Herbert Hoover and a bunch of facts about him. Herbert Hoover was the 31st President of the United States. He was born on August 10th, 1874, and died on October 20th, 1964. He was president from March 4th, 1929 to March 4th, 1933.
If you guys have questions during his presentation, you guys can raise your hands and he can call on you, or you can wait till the end for your questions as well.
For many years, Americans blamed Hoover for the Great Depression and criticized his efforts to solve the crisis. The reason why the people blamed him because, for one, he was the president in power at the time. Second, because the people perceived that he wasn't doing anything to get the country out of the crisis.
You have a question out here, Dylan. You want to answer them now as you go?
What does perceived mean?
To think, like,
Yeah,
I think that Herbert Hoover caused the crisis.
Okay, thank you.
Even though Herbert Hoover might seem bad for causing the Great Depression, he's not all bad. During World War I, before he was president, Herbert Hoover was known as a great humanitarian. You?
What does humanitarian mean?
It's humanitarian, by the way.
Like, I guess it's a human who takes care of another human.
Yeah, it's anybody that does good things for other humans.
Yeah.
When you're a humanitarian, you might donate money, you might start charities, all right, open a food drive or one of those soup kitchens. Those people would be considered humanitarians. They're humans who take care of other humans. I am going to ask you, actually, hold off on the questions till the end, because that way we won't record the questions. So all of Dylan will answer all of your questions at the end.
He was called that because he saved 10 million people by sending food to war-torn Europe.
One human taking care of other humans.
As the son of a Quaker blacksmith in Iowa, Hoover was an orphan at the age of 9. Hoover became an orphan because at 6 years old, his father died of a heart attack, and when his father had
Pneumonia.
pneumonia. At the age of 9, his mother died of pneumonia and a typhoid.
Say that word again.
Pneumonia.
Pneumonia.
And a typhoid fever, leaving Hoover an orphan. But
Give him a round of applause. Action.
I'm going to be teaching you guys about orphans today. Orphans during the Great Depression. Orphan trains. Before the Great Depression, orphan trains were popular during 1854 to 1929. When many people immigrated to the East Coast, it led to homelessness. In 1850, in New York City, it was estimated that up to 30,000 children were homeless. This caused a rise in orphanages. Orphanages had little food, poor education, and minimal attention. With so many children, there wasn't enough places to house them, so certain children were put on trains to the Midwestern families. For example, mostly young, white, and able-bodied children were sent because they could often help out on farms. Most children were going to a predetermined home, but those that weren't were often auctioned off like livestock at train stations. Some children went to loving homes, while others were treated like slaves. During this time, there was a government intervention for children. In the 1920s, the government began passing laws concerning children. Children could be placed across state lines.
They could or they could not?
They couldn't.
Okay.
They could be across state lines. This increased the amount of children placed in foster care and orphanages. By the mid-1930s, there were about 144,000 children in orphanages and 249,000 children in the foster care system.
That's a lot of kids. That's almost 400,000 children in all, if you guys do the math.
Yep. That's like 300,000 something. 300,000 plus children.
I just told you it's approximately 400,000. All right. 7,000 exactly. Go ahead, keep going.
While orphan trains became a thing of the past, there was still an enormous amount of children that were without parents and homeless when the Great Depression started. The Great Depression just increased the number of children in need. The government attempted to make more humane decisions concerning the welfare of our orphans. The Great Depression started on October 24th, 1929. It was caused by the Wall Street stock market crash. It lasted 120 months and it ended in 1939.
120 months, how many years is that?
10 years.
10 years. That's quick mental math. So, 10 years.
Some effects the Great Depression had on children are malnutrition, hard labor, hunger, displacement, living with uncertainty caused emotional and psychological issues, and becoming orphans. Results the Great Depression had on children were poor working conditions, often left children without parents due to lack of food and ability to seek health care. Parents died. Families were so poor that they no longer felt that they could feed their children, so they sent them to orphanages. Orphans. More than 200,000 children were in the United States without supervision, and they were homeless. They competed with adults for jobs, and if they lived in an orphanage, they lived with crowded housing, with few beds, and little food. Orphans would often eat plain soup with bits of bread or oatmeal. When these ran out, they would eat whatever they could find. Plain soup with bits of bread had little nutritional value. This led to malnutrition. Siblings were often separated, and orphans that lived on streets often panhandled, sold rags, or anything they could find. They would often find a group or gang to belong to for safety. Orphans also fell victim to labor organizers that would go out and round up children who by themselves and get their permission. Orphans also fell victim to labor organizers that would go out and round up children who by themselves and get their permission to be sent to a rural area, often to do farm work. Children were often not given all the information to make an informed decision. When they arrived, they were often treated like indentured servants or slaves. They often received no pay and little food in exchange for their work. Many children ran away from these situations by the time they were teenagers. And many times they resorted to criminal behavior to survive. In conclusion, the Great Depression was hard on everyone involved, and families suffered tremendously. And children that were orphans had it even worse. Are there any questions about orphans during the Great Depression?
Give them a round of applause. Action.
I'm going to teach you about bank runs. A bank run is when a large number of anxious people that withdrew their deposits in cash, forcing banks to liquidate loans of 10, often leading to bank failure. And then bank runs were when the Great Depression was. So approximately around 1929 to 1939. The first bank run happened in Tennessee, but all of the bank runs happened around the whole U.S. Bank runs happened because when a large number of depositors, fearing that the banks will be unable to repay the deposits in a full and on-time I don't know how to read that.
What word? Simultaneously.
Simultaneously, they went to withdraw their funds immediately. Bank runs affected the Great Depression because all 9,000 banks failed, taking with the 7 billion depositors' assets. And in the 1930s, there was no such thing as deposit insurance. This was a New Deal reform. When bank failed, the depositors were simply left without a penny. And I drew a picture of the bank.
Thank you. Thank you is the way that you always end it for a good question.
Today we'll be teaching you about can you leave me my office?
You guys gotta be really loud.
Yeah,
Shout it.
White, can you meet me in my office later?
Yes, sir.
I hate to tell you this, and you're fired. Why? Because you've been carrying around illegal substances.
Please, please, please give me another chance. Please, I have a child. Please, 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 please.
Security!
Please, please.
You're going away.
No, look at him.
Daddy.
Okay, that was bad.
That's it. I'll be serving you guys today. What would you like?
I will have oatmeal and apple and some milk.
Okay. I'll have oatmeal and milk, please.
Why can't we use the new restaurant that is opened up?
Well, we can't afford it. Remember I got fired?
No, it's okay. We'll get through this together. Cut.
That's it?
Yeah, we really didn't prepare for this.
Action.
Hi, I'm going to be teaching you about Louisville's and Great Depression. Some people lived in Louisville that were unemployed between trade and searching for jobs and food. By the way, trade means people who are staying or working in a place for a short amount of time. Groups of these dwelling for the homeless were called Hoovervilles. And dwelling means a house or a other place of residence. Seattle's main Hooverville was one of the largest, longest lasting, and best documented in the nation. It stood for 10 years, 1931 to 1940. Throughout the country, Hoovervilles or makeshift shanties would spring up to provide shelter whenever possible, often near water sources or soup kitchens operated by churches or charities, on July 19, 2021. However, Hoovervilles were typically damp and unsanitary. They hosted shelters to their inhabitants, as well as those living nearby, but they were little that local governments or health agencies could do. Hooverville residents had nowhere else to go, and public sympathy for the most part was with them. As the Depression worsened, millions of families lost their jobs and depleted their savings, and they also lost their health, so they had to live. As a result, during the Great Depression, many people to find work while businesses struggled to survive. With an overall reduction in sales of goods and services, that is mostly what caused them to Hoover bills. When the government failed to provide relief, President Herbert Hoover was blamed for the intolerable economic and social conditions. So the shanty towns that cropped up became known as Hoover. And economics means money loss of the neighborhood. Herbert Hoover, and they blamed Herbert Hoover for not having any money. Hoovers didn't really have anything to be entertained with, and they had limited pots and pans. They were built by unemployed and Americans that had been made homeless and had nowhere else to live. By 1932, between 1 and 2 million American people were homeless. Any questions?
You tell us about your pictures before we get to questions.
A bunch of details about money loss. That's what caused people to live in Hooverville during the Great Depression. This picture is of kids trying to get food in the Hoovervilles, and then these two are about what Hoovervilles looked like in the Great Depression.
This picture down here, a man with his dog in the Hooverville. Hoovervilles were made out of junk that we find on the streets.
This picture is of a pot that's heated. People would put up signs to help them in the Hoovervilles. Examples, these are examples of what Hoovervilles look like.
Action.
Today we are going to be teaching you about hobos. A hobo is a homeless person who lives in a vagrant lifestyle, traveling from place to place. The hobos rode on the rails or hitchhiked their way across America in search of jobs and a better life. Hobos were the nomadic workers who roamed the United States, taking jobs wherever they could and never spending too long in one place. The Great Depression started in 1929 and ended in 1939. And was when the numbers were likely at their highest, as it forced an estimated 4 million adults to leave their homes in search of food and lodging.
Don't forget to tell us about your pictures. You guys keep skipping over pictures.
More than 2 million men, or perhaps 8,000 women, became hobos. At least 6,500 hobos were killed in the 1 year, either in accidents or by railroad. However, during the Depression, the ill treatment they endured came more often than well, rather than filling their hobos. Hobos were not bums or tramps. They were men seeking work wherever they could find it. They lived outdoors in camps known as jungles. The dangers of travel by hopping trains crippled many. When the Great Depression hit, jobs dried up and families lost their houses and farms. The end.
A round of applause.